Hi everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Wellbeing Sessions. I'm Helen Roscoe. At the heart of these conversations lies a deep passion and interest in well-being and creativity, whilst also tapping into further interests and intrigue around nature and yoga. They may not always include all of these elements, but I guess in many ways I'm curious as to how these things connect for me. And in doing so, I've come across some wonderful practitioners whom I feel will be able to shed further light into each realm of inquiry as we dig a little deeper into our fields of interest and towards new territories. Joining me this week is Kirstie Henderson, founder and creative director of Brave Day. Brave Day is an independent creative business with a drive to help people in organisations, charities and education to explore and tell their stories in creative ways that goes on to support their growth, health and well-being. She is the wearer of many hats, including a creative practitioner and mentor, a motion visual artist and digital creator of video and audio content for documentaries, social media and educational content. She is created in the connection between the creative practice and the principles of personal development, movement, well-being, mindfulness and spirituality. Kirstie believes anyone can be creative and everyone can grow and flourish through bringing creativity into their everyday lives. I hope that this conversation is inspiring, intriguing, or useful to you in some way. I invite you to comment and get involved via the live chat should you feel you'd like to, and I'd love to have your contributions or thoughts afterwards as well. So, welcome, Kirstie. Hi.
Hi, Helen.
How are you this evening? How are you feeling?
Well. Very well. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
On your third episode now, is
I
it?
know.
Yeah.
It seems to be
Quite an
flying by
honour.
at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
it's very peaceful this evening. It feels nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is very peaceful. We're moving towards summer, so there's this kind of nice calmness of the season arriving from the chaos of spring, hopefully.
Yeah. Definitely.
I guess my first conversation, just thinking about lockdown and the current climate that we're in, how are you finding your feet, or how have you found your feet in this climate, and in what ways have you been affected?
Pretty much like everybody else, I would expect. I think this is like 12 weeks in, is that right now, of official lockdown. And so I've been isolating, kind of shielding really for 12 weeks because I'm on one of the lists of being moderately at risk, okay. I would say. So I have been going out for daily walks, but I haven't been able to go very far and I haven't seen many people. So it's it's been a strange time, but actually now, 12 weeks in, it's been really positive in a lot of ways for me. Okay. Yeah. Creatively, definitely, it's been positive. Okay. So, yeah, just having a bit more time. I think I went into this after back-to-back projects, which, I was kind of trying to power through, and I was just on the verge of starting a new project. So it's kind of, the plug was pulled out, and then it's just, right, what do I do now? So, it's mixed feelings, yeah.
So what have you been doing now? I mean, obviously projects have changed, the direction maybe changed a little bit of how those projects might end up going forward. But what are you doing now then that's maybe different to what you were doing before? From a creative
I think it's funny, at the beginning of lockdown I thought I just didn't feel creative at all, and I think a lot of the creative friends that I have felt the same way. And so I just got into a routine of going for my walks and doing very small things, and like taking photographs, just playing, sketching, just little things every day. And it's kind of grown in momentum. So 12 weeks on, I think I've done like 4 quite big creative projects now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Online. Well, with creative people that I know, some collaborations, and so that has really fed into my own creative practice. That's developed quite a lot. And it's just given me time to really think about what I want to do with my business, Brave Day. Like, it's quite a luxury to have time to develop it. I'm sure like any small business owner knows, you don't really have that much time for development. So yeah, in a nutshell, I've done a course with screen dance, which is filming dance through a visual medium, but in quite creative ways. I'll talk a bit more about that later. And then just doing a lot of mixed media collage. I've done a collaboration with a poet, Hafsa Bashir, which was for Greater Manchester put out a commission for 60 artists to create something creative during lockdown. So I collaborated with her on that. So that was wonderful. Yeah, and then just learning new skills, learning how to create ebooks, lots of different edits that I've been meaning to get around to doing. Yeah. So yeah, it's really hard to kind of summarize actually, but yeah, a lot of creativity.
Yeah, there's always a backlog of something that needs to be addressed, isn't there? Or like you say, editing, or just kind of going through the archives and revisiting things. I mean, there's so much.
Yeah.
If you have that archive, there's so much that you can get from that will feed your creativity and just spark a new idea. That's something that Definitely. I've been doing as well. So I met you in January, and we were on a retreat, and kind of we just sort of seemed to gel on that day. And obviously we've stayed in touch since then, and just kind of you started coming to my yoga classes, and we've started having conversations around creativity and potentially even projects that we might want to do together in the future. But obviously I don't really know much about you before that point. So could you just give us, and for people who are watching, just a little bit of your background, what kind of led you towards starting Brave Day, and the processes maybe that you went through, some of the kind of big transformational things that arose for you?
Yeah, so, well, this is the 6th year since I became freelance, and I think it's, coming up to 5 years since I started Brave Day. So before that, I was in communications and events. So I worked for agencies, and it was very creative what I did, but it was... So I started off originally as a video editor. So I was an editor for maybe 10 years. And then I gradually got into directing video, scripting, animation, producing. So eventually my last position was senior video producer. And so I always feel like I go to talk about it quite negatively, when really it did give me a lot of training and development, and it stretched me a lot. But I think there was a growing sense, probably for about 10 years before I left, that I was just not in the right environment. It's very commercial, very corporate, fast-paced, very long hours. And when I was in my 30s, I developed a chronic illness, ulcerative colitis, which can be very debilitating. And I kind of went in and out of remission, but I was still working all the way through, and I was trying to hide it. And I think when I left, it was a choice, but it also wasn't a choice, because I think you just get to a point where you think, this is actually really affecting my health. It affected me mentally. So even though I was doing the job and I felt I was quite successful in it, inside me, I was desperate for something else, and I think the periods in that 10 years before I left, sometimes I'd have like, say, 2 or 3 months of not being able to work fully, and then I'd have to find ways to sustain myself through that period. So I got really into walking, getting into nature, taking photographs, filming kind of just little moments of my day. And this just became a very easy practice to do. And I kind of built up this bank of, I guess, moments in my life, noticing things that I started to make into little films for myself. So I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. And then I think when I left my job, then it was like getting into a whole new sector, which I'll talk about in a bit. I suddenly found a use for all this material that I'd gathered over these years, and all those moments of, you know, feeling quite isolated sometimes and very personal, private things. I thought, actually, there's really something in here that could benefit other people. And also I found other people who were doing similar things as well. I think, so it slowly formed into something that was more about creativity for health and a kind of therapeutic process.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So from there, then you kind of started moving in towards setting up your own company, which is a pretty, like you say, brave day, quite a bold step, isn't it? So perhaps you can explain to people, what are the principles of Brave Day? What is it that you're kind of standing for in terms of your business, in terms of your ethos? Would you like to share that with us, Kirstie?
Yeah, I guess it's for people like myself who just had that inner calling, really, to live more creatively and be able to find a way of expressing your own vision and your own way of seeing things and own way of being, and to be able to have a way of experimenting with ideas, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and finding expansion and growth. And I think it's funny because even though I was being creative in my last position, like in my career, it was never it didn't feel like my creativity. It didn't feel like my voice. And I don't know why that desire was there, but it just felt like I was living this half life. And I think that is true for a lot of people. And sometimes you don't know what it is that's missing until you start on the creative path, as it is. I think once you get into that, like whatever form of creativity, I think you then go, oh, right, this is why I was so frustrated. This is why I, sometimes would get quite depressed about things. And I think, it just, the benefits of creativity are just so vast that, I don't know, I just feel really passionate about helping other people now to kind of go on the same journey that I've been through. And I've seen like firsthand over and over with the videos that I've been doing, the benefits that it's given to people. It's just transformed people and their daily life. So that sounds like a kind of very broad principle, but it's that can come through in lots of different ways, and I'll go into like how I actually put that into practice with various projects. But yeah, just helping people to live a more creative life and build their confidence as well as they do it.
That is a very beautiful purpose. I mean, I can really resonate with that because I have always been a creative person, but I think for much of my life and up until, sort of being in my mid-20s, that I just pushed so much of that aside. Like I did my GCSE art degree after school. I started my A-levels and I just didn't even think I was going to do A-level art. And I just thought, I'm going to be a PE teacher. I'm just going to do what my mum did. So then I ended up doing A-level PE, and then I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to do A-level art. So then I did A-level art. I got like the highest score in the college. And then I went on to university to study English. I got to university and then realised actually I want to do an art degree. So I went home and did an art foundation, and then went back to the same university and did a fine art degree. But then the whole time I was training to be an athlete. So for much of my young adult life, I always had it there. And it was really helpful because it gave me an outlet to be expressive that sport didn't provide, or that other subjects, other things. I mean, I find English now and poetry is also a very kind of creative practice. And actually that was an area that I was really interested in. I was interested in language acquisition. You know, there were lots of things that I was interested in. But for me, up until, say, the age of, I don't know, let's say 27, I just kind of, because that was when I stopped doing athletics. Like, it's a point in my life where there was this, you know, bridge that I kind of crossed, and it was like, I'm leaving that behind and I'm going down the creative route. And I just knew, like, because every time it was always creativity that was drawing me in. And I was the same as you. Like, I was kind of, I guess, like you say, living a half life, or living a life in a way that wasn't fulfilling all of the things that I really, I guess, felt were in my heart. And then, but always then something would come through, like photography and travel, and I would just start documenting things, and I just, you know, photograph things, and it'd be like, what am I photographing that for? But actually kind of story behind it, and how those kind of images build, and what it is that you're noticing, you know, that really is quite a freeing practice. Like, don't worry too much about the labels and what it is that you should be doing. Think about something that speaks to you, and actually document that and create something from that. And then obviously over time I've gone into yoga, and that's when it's become much more of a reflective practice, and sort of experiencing yoga and creativity and the flow of the two is an extremely opening practice for me. So I can really resonate with you in terms of just sort of having that moment of realizing how you can work with creativity to transform yourself in a positive way. So you absolutely have a clip. So in our conversation today, we're going to show some of your projects that you've worked on. And the first one that you want to show is the courage to create. So you want to just maybe kind of intro us into that, and we can show your first kind of little piece for people.
I don't think we're playing the whole film, but you can see it on the website if you want to afterwards. This actually, I wasn't really intending it to be a piece for the website. It was something that I just started putting together, and you'll see there's lots of little clips in it that were actually from my archive of walks. So and it's just like journeys, and every time I look at this, I know exactly where I was and how I was feeling when I got these clips. And it's just like moments, really. Some of it's from videos that I shot like this for an arts and community project. This is a poet from Manchester, and it's. So you see it, little bits from nature. You know, that was like a holiday in Wales where I was on my own and just like trying to recover actually from illness at the time. It's kind of, that's in Scotland. You know, it's just, I put these in because I thought it's something everyone can do. You know, most people have a phone these days that can take fairly decent photos or film clips. And I think, you know, a lot of time they just sit on your phone and don't really go anywhere. And I think it is really good to do something with them, because, you know, even if it's just like inspiring you to create something else, I think it's something that's come from you and your unique perspective. So I think, I've just talked all over the top top of this.
That's okay, because like you say, people can go to your website. This is on Kirstie's homepage, so if you kind of want to go and view it, you can. I think what I took from that little sort of short film is, like you say, the journey, and there's a real emotion attached to it as well. Like you can't help but be on that emotional journey with you as you're sort of making your way through. And why not document your holiday in an artistic way, or just kind of even just kind of taking your film and photographing your feet and that sensation of being in the cool water, like you can feel it through the visual image. So
yeah, it's very sensory, I suppose, that I don't know, I think you get it because I've seen your photography, and it's very like, you know, just capturing the moments of light and shade and reflections, and you know, it's kind of, I can't help but want to capture that in some way, and it's compulsive, really.
It's compulsive. And the thing is, with what I show on my Instagram account isn't my commercial work. I hardly ever put a commercial image on there, because actually that's not, you know, yes, it's nice to show imagery that we're commissioned for, but really the stuff that I'm passionate about and the stuff that drives me is that noticing of light, is that everyday, is that interaction that I have with my children, that kind of, you know, the moments of them sort of showing their personality or their vulnerability. You know, it's for me, the process is a relationship between me, my camera, and what it is that I'm seeing. And so I'm not really interested necessarily in showing commercial work, especially on my Instagram account. It's more about what is happening here in my heart and what's speaking to me. And that then is the process of kind of being able to talk freely about a topic. You know, if you see an image and it resonates with you, suddenly you can start talking about it, and that might lead on to another conversation that opens up a bit of space, or releases some tension in some way. You know, this is quite powerful, really, to sort of,
it is,
to do that. And also not to be afraid as well to sort of show your personal work, because that's at the heart of what you do. You know, and so many projects that are out there, they're going to come from a spark. They're going to come from some seed, and that seed could have been planted, like you say, on your holiday in Wales or on a train up to Scotland, or, you know, there's just so many ways that can kind of, that little seed of creativity can tap into lots of different projects and ideas.
Absolutely. Like you don't know where it's going to go when you know, you don't. And also I think the one thing that I got from it for my health, mental health as well, was just the mindfulness of that practice. You know, when you're looking and you're observing and you're noticing and listening to things, you know, you're not, that chatter that's often in your head in daily life that drives you crazy goes. And I think it just helps you to come back to yourself and feel more grounded, more connected. Sometimes in ways you can't put into words. It's just, you just know that you feel better for doing it. It's very simple.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to yoga, it's the same. Like, and I used to always say, oh, the practice of yoga is this, the practice of yoga is that. But actually, the practice of yoga is kind of being in that state of mindfulness where you're kind of fully aware of, maybe you're just focusing in on one thing and, like you say, dulling the chatter of all the noise and the chaos that's trying to take you elsewhere. So that doesn't need to be a yoga practice on a mat. It doesn't need to be a yoga practice in a studio. In order for you to practice yoga, sitting in the garden or putting your feet in that kind of on those pebbles in a river, or looking out the window on a train and kind of noticing and observing, that is a state of yoga, kind of something that holds you there and brings about a sense of steadiness and calm in the mind and the body and the breath. Like, we don't need to be kind of moving ourselves around in order to do that. In fact, we need to be bringing ourselves to stillness. And in order for us to have that stillness and that sense of kind of containment, then it brings about groundedness, it brings about freedom, kind of inner peace. There's so many different ways that it can transform us.
Even it definitely it shifts your mind into a different state, and it's it's calmer. And I think especially both of us are very, inspired by the outdoors and walking in nature. And I think just even being out, the expansiveness of the sky, and sometimes I'd find when I think a lot of people who have any kind of chronic illness or live stressful lives in offices and they're not getting out very much, it impacts on you. You start to close down and feel confined and contained, and it's just awful. And I think when you get out regularly, even if it's just for a little bit, it does lift. Everything sort of expands within you gradually, and then you can see a way out of maybe a situation you're in, or I don't know, just things feel bigger. And that's, I think, something that's really helped me. I get past a lot of obstacles, a lot of stresses. I also regular?
Sort of during lockdown as well, like that is kind of, those practices will have been quite revolutionary for people in terms of, just from my personal experience of the weather that we've had and that kind of stillness of lockdown, and how it has been so quiet that we've really been able to appreciate nature. And like you say, the vastness of the sky, just kind of looking up at the sky and acknowledging the enormity of the earth and how small we are, but everything playing its role, everything has its part, and just kind of knowing that in yourself is awe-inspiring. Those moments, that's what kind of brings about an idea, isn't it? You kind of get yourself into a clear headspace, a clear physical space, and then the ideas kind of just flow then.
I think it's that calm, isn't it? It's that, I think you can't really be creative when your mind is tense and in fight or flight. When you're anxious, it shuts down. And I think so. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Now I've got a bit more into dance and movement, and obviously I've been doing the yoga with you. That physical movement as well helps you really get into just a different state of mind, really, that you can calm yourself, and then your mind starts to release this creativity. And try and do that when you're uptight and tired and stressed out. So I think for a lot of people who don't think that they're creative, I think it's just that they're not in the right mindset. They're stressed out. They haven't got enough space. So it is about finding daily practices, whatever level you can do it to, even if it's like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, where you just, that is something that helps you calm and find stillness. That's one of the first steps, fundamental steps for creativity, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I always find, with a yoga practice or any kind of movement-based practice, like you say, like dancing, it's relieving tensions. You're just relieving tensions in your body so that you can be still and comfortable to be still in yourself.
Yeah.
And then things can arise. That's when there's a moment for change, positive change to occur. Shall we have a little chat about flow states quickly? And then we'll move on and show some more of your videos. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So how do you describe a flow state? What's your kind of knowledge of a flow state?
Well, I suppose there's lots of different kinds of flow states, but for me, it's creatively, it's when you've, as we just said, kind of got your mind calm, you've started an activity, that whatever creative activity that is, that you become completely absorbed in. So it might be something you do while you're moving. It could be photography while you're out on a walk, or it might be painting, could be dancing, could be making music. But it's a state where you're not conscious anymore that you're doing it. You're just doing it. It's just being. So, and I think it's only after you've done it that you go, oh, I didn't realize how lost I was in that. How wonderful. And I think that's it's so good for you to be able to find that sense of flow in so many ways.
Yeah, so it's almost like becomes a meditation in some way, where you're kind of
very
in the
meditative
moment, and you're very much in tune with what you're doing, to the point where nothing else can interfere.
Yeah, you're totally focused, I guess, on that moment to moment activity that you're doing. And it's not to say, you know, there's definitely some creative things that you do where you can be thinking of other things. So you could be, I don't know, sewing or crafting and thinking. But I think when you're really in a state of flow, everything goes apart from what you're just doing in that moment. So it's very mindful. And I think for your mind to get into that state regularly opens up a lot of possibilities for you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So shall we have a little look at some of your kind of motion art, and maybe have a little chat about your kind of interest in performance and dance, and also that might feed quite nicely into the projects that you've been doing during lockdown as well, kind of how that helped you sort of with your creative practice. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So yeah.
Yeah, so this is a project I was doing with a dance company called Fallen Angels and Cartwheel Arts, and it was very mixed media. They're a dance company who help people who are in recovery from addiction, and they were making art for the first time, so they've never done any art.
Oh, wow.
So and then I said, well, what about if we bring video projection into it? So it was a real, like, it was probably one of the first projects I did that introduced me to that, like, mixed media working on a creative project.
And so you're doing the digital?
That's me there. Yeah. So here's so I've been working, I'm now an associate artist with the dance company in Hull that I got involved with, and so I do a lot of work with this dance company using poetry as a starting point. So this is a project we actually did with Simon Armitage, who's now Poet Laureate. Very lucky to work with him. And the themes that we were working with, this is stuff that I did in my art studio. So I just created a lot of, like, tactile kind of art making, and then I layered it with video clips and abstract imagery. So I built that up, and then I projected it onto the dancers, and you can't quite see it actually in this video clip here, but depending on the environment, it really, like, creates new shapes cutting across the dancers. So so the fact they're in white, you know, it really brings out that kind of abstract projection. This was another project that I did when I had a studio at Pool Arts, which is in Manchester, and we were just exploring the area of Ardwick in Manchester, taking photographs of, a bit like I do generally, of just, like, moments of our day. We went out for a walk and we captured just, like, you know, a flower coming out of the pavement and graffiti and all sorts of things, and then I came back and thought, I always work in a kind of layered way. So I have the core ingredients, and then I look at how I could use soundscape and music and layer it up. So in editing, you can layer, and you can make things transparent and move them. So I just get really, I don't always know what I'm going to do with it. It becomes quite an instinctive thing.
So that's like kind of your flow state, isn't it?
It is a flow state, yeah. And it's, Yeah, it's something that I started doing privately, I think, years ago. And then it's like, I think when you suddenly start working with poets or dancers and you're working with other creative people, you get the opportunity then to use all of this like abstract material that you've got.
Exactly.
You know, and it's not for a commercial, you know, selling the product or anything. It's like completely for an artistic project. So that is, it's amazing. It's so liberating to not have that. You've got the confines of a creative project, as in, you know, you've decided what the theme is and how you're going to work together with the other creatives. So you do need some structure to it. But especially when I work with Joined Up Dance, each of us were given agency really to create how we wanted to and how we wanted to respond to it. So that's, yeah, it's really helped me grow more confidence, I think, to put the more weird stuff out there.
Yeah,
you know, that I think people won't get that, and actually they do. You know, people do get it. So I guess that links in again to, you know, the idea of like growing courage to create is, you know, risk putting something out that you think people are not going to get, and just see how people do respond. And a lot of the time they respond positively. So it's it's great. It's really good fun, and I think that kind of working is something that I would like to do more of for myself, but also to help other people to play with that themselves. So it might be introducing it in little ways into creative projects that I do, maybe with schools or community groups or whoever I'm working with. Like just looking at mixed media as a way of exploring things, and that isn't always about like spoken word. I think you know, that's a great form, poetry and creative writing, but I think using other senses as well, you know, so your visual senses, soundscapes, movement. I think that helps you just look at things from different perspectives that you probably wouldn't get if you just did one form of media. So yeah, that's something I definitely am, you know, growing myself and hope to share with others.
So with these projects then, you're kind of coming up with, I mean, like you say, a lot of it you were kind of doing in your art studio, and then you're layering and you're kind of going through this process, and then you're using them in quite an abstract way. I mean, it just kind of on a little side shoot from an audience participation point of view, that is really quite captivating. Like it's a really different experience as well. So I mean, Dave and I years ago, we were in Berlin and we went to this restaurant, and it's a very, very small restaurant, and the food was themed, and it was they do like about seven or eight course, and there's an artist in the space with you, and they're projecting around the room as you're eating. So it completely changes the experience of the food, and the food links into the art, and the art links into the food. So you're kind of you're in like a live art piece. And
that sounds amazing.
You know, and I know it was amazing. But I think that the power of projection and that kind of layering really does give the audience a completely different take on it, rather than them just kind of, you get immersed into it, you get drawn in by the projection. Like we saw Kraftwerk last summer at Blue Dot, and it was the same with that. Like kind of, they're on stage, they're not really doing much, but the projections are so powerful that combined with the music, that's what's kind of bringing you in. That's what's kind of opening and releasing as you're kind of going on this journey of art, you know. And it's so nice that you can do something that kind of starts as like personal explorations, and then to be able to then collaborate and share that with other creatives or people who are, like you say, you've worked with, you know, you work with marginalized communities, like sort of letting people just think outside the box a little.
Yeah, and I think it's actually I think it's something everybody can do to some extent as well. You know, I know there's limitations sometimes when if people feel they don't have confidence in digital skills, using apps and editing software and things like that. So I understand, it's not easy for everybody, but actually it is getting easier. Because there's so many apps out there that make it easy for you. But I think what's needed is just giving ideas and inspiration to people so that they think, oh yeah, I never thought to do it that way. And then they can start to play themselves and come up with something completely different to what I would have done. And, I think it's just the idea of taking one form of media and then playfully turning it into something else by whether that's layering or projecting it or responding to it in another creative form. So actually, the course I've been doing in screen dance while in lockdown, I did one session, a practice session with a dancer from dance company I was working with, Joined Up Dance, but we did it through Zoom. So I was like directing through Zoom and filming the screen while Effie danced. And then I asked her to hold the camera and, kind of gave us some direction, but obviously she was coming up with the choreography, and we were both kind of responding to each other in real time. And that was something I've never done before. And it looks different, it doesn't look like as if I've shot it, as if I'm there. It looks quite kind of saturated, almost like VHS or something. And it's just, I don't know, it's just fun to do things like that, just to see what comes out of it. And then you think, I don't know, well, try again. I'll do something next week with Effie that takes that on a bit stage further. So you don't know what comes out of when you're just in that kind of playful, experimental mindset. It's quite amazing. And sometimes you do something and think, oh, that's not very good. But I think you realise that it doesn't really matter, and that there could be like a little seed within that that goes on to something else. So you just don't throw anything out. Just go, it's fun doing it, and maybe something more will come from it.
And I think over the next few months and possibly throughout the next year, these virtual exchanges are going to have to continue. So people are going to be working with each other more through this new kind of format. And I've seen stuff on Instagram with photographers photographing, portraits through Zoom, and you do get a really interesting take on things. It's different, and it is really creative. I think if you can kind of have that connection with somebody and still kind of capture the essence, or capture the kind of essence of that person, it doesn't really matter whether it's blurred, it doesn't really matter if it's out of focus, or it's just the feeling of it. And there is going to be a lot more of that coming through, I think, as well.
Definitely.
Are there any other projects that you want to show before we start kind of wrapping this up a little, Kirstie? Are there any other projects that you want to just kind of quickly show?
Well, you could show maybe the community one, because that's a big part of my work, is working with health and social care organisations and arts organisations around arts and culture, supporting health and well-being in communities. So I've done a lot of... I don't know if you can hear that all right.
Feeling socially isolated, so I took a deliberate decision to try and seek out a local walking group in order to make new local connections and expand my world.
I think if people become more aware of the history and proud of it, then it helps us connect now.
Being inclusive of everyone.
Person who stands up for his rights. No prejudice.
With the original pioneers, they were all men.
Cultural diversity. We'd have pride days, where we celebrate stuff like homosexuality and different cultures and races. Celebrate for that, It'd be a kids' festival. Sure. Relevant to Rochdale.
So like I say, you can watch the full films on everything's on my Vimeo account, which
We can leave a link to that.
We can link to that, yeah. But I think the reason I wanted to show that, a little bit of that, is because something that's really educated me and inspired like the direction that I want to go in is getting involved with filming, documenting these projects that are going on, especially in Greater Manchester. I think Greater Manchester is completely leading the way on this, around communities finding answers for themselves, really, and through creativity and through health groups, and people are finding greater connection together. They're finding solutions to social isolation, and just how much that's improving people's lives. A lot of people kind of go to the doctors and they get a prescription for medication, whereas lots of GPs now, especially again in Greater Manchester, are saying, well, okay, medicine's important, but also what are you doing in your day? Do you belong to any, do you do any exercise? Do you belong to a creative group? Do you, and so they're saying, why don't you, they call it social prescribing, which sounds very medicalized, but it's saying instead of just medicine, there's other things that people need to thrive in their lives. And that's all around, I guess, connection, really, connection to other people, being able to express themselves, find their voice, feel like they belong somewhere. So I think creativity is definitely a tool of bringing communities together, and also like exploring a lot of issues that go on, that are problems in our communities at the moment. It's a way of creatively finding, common ground, really, and solutions. So I think there's a lot of hope in this kind of work, and especially I think, with everything that's been going on in the past week with Black Lives Matters, I think there's so much work that needs to be done in communities, like so much healing and ways of finding that common ground. So I think, creativity and creative projects are definitely a really valuable tool to help us grow, grow and connect,
Yeah, it just cuts through so many barriers.
It does.
It just like you say, it brings communities together, but it's the conversations that come from that and the friendships that form from that are kind of, that's what's helping people's kind of mental health, their sense of belonging, just relationships to themselves, it's a really, really beautiful way to work, definitely. And for people like you say, who just sort of label themselves, well, I'm not creative, and yet then they discover for themselves that they can create these wonderful something, I don't know what it is. There are so many possibilities.
We are creative beings, we are creativity, and I think it's just that a lot of people haven't found their outlet yet, or something stopping them. They might have I used to be creative, but not anymore, or I just don't have time, and and there's valid reasons for that.
Definitely.
But I think once you get a taste of the benefits of it, then it slowly transforms how you see everything, and how you see yourself as well. So I want everybody to have an experience of that in some way.
Okay, so we're just going to start wrapping it up a little. Just wanted to ask you what your plans are moving forward. You've kind of been thinking, maybe, obviously you've spoken about more of the projects that you'd like to be working on, working in the community more, but also kind of, you've mentioned to me before, offering a mentoring platform, writing courses, ebooks. So do you just want to maybe let people know how they might kind of unfold, and what your sort of thoughts are around that process?
Yeah, well, I'm developing, it's a course, but it's a framework really of creative learning and development, which I'm calling Courage to Create.
Okay.
And so that eventually will be online courses that anybody can engage with, and you could do that with mentoring support, or you could do it as a group. A group of friends or a community group could take on the course and run it themselves. But also it's something that I could bring to organisations and charities and schools, and it's like a template and an ethos of creative learning. So there's be lots of like things in the creative toolkit to get people going with the creativity, but also a lot of flexibility in that to adapt it to how you want the project to run. So maybe you want to explore a theme, or maybe you want it to support emotional well-being, whatever it might be. It can be adapted to that, but it would have like a sort of core foundation of steps to go through to expand your creativity. So it's work I've already been doing with organisations, but I haven't like honed it into some kind of, like say framework, a structure. Yeah. So it's, having this time has got me going on that. And it should carry on developing over the next few months.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yes.
And what about your little projects that you've been working on during lockdown? Are you going to be sharing any of those, or are you sharing them already?
Little bits of that. There's some things on my Instagram that are my practice of screen dance, and I probably will share bits of it, work in progress. I will be hopefully going back to working with Joined Up Dance Company again as soon as, we just don't know at the moment how it's going to pan out with social distancing and all that. So but we'll work together in some way. And I've got lots of other projects that were kind of put on hold with, I'm working with a lecturer at Goldsmiths University on, and the project was around changing narratives with around being Muslim and being a Muslim school teenager. And she wants to take that to universities globally. So we've started the project, but it's definitely going to be something that's ongoing and using a lot of creative techniques to explore that. So I probably missed out quite a lot of different things, but yeah, there's lots to be getting on with, and we just had this pause, really, haven't we? So
definitely.
So in some ways lucky, but in other ways very strange.
Yeah, I mean, we have a pause, and it's easy to fill that time with stuff, isn't it? It's just kind of filtering in and kind of homing in on the stuff that you really want to do, and setting time aside to kind of get those things done. But you need to enjoy yourself as well, where you can. And so just kind of moving forward a little, what do you imagine or hope will be different moving forward from the pandemic? So, just kind of from your heart, what do you hope or imagine will change?
Well, I think we've all heard and all experienced the difference in being forced to slow down and having more time to reflect. And I know that might not resonate with people who've been trying to homeschool and had a lot of stresses with work. And so I'm not talking for everybody here, but I think just the strangeness of the situation has definitely made everybody think, what could be different? How could we live differently? How could we connect better with each other? And this is a crucial time.
It is.
I think in our history we have to find solutions, and connection. I hope greater connection, more compassion, and I think that anything that helps people to find empathy for each other and common ground is what I hope comes out of it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else that you want to talk about before we leave? Or
Just to thank you, Helen, for for your yoga sessions.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Because I think having that regular Monday morning practice it's like set every week off as I felt grounded and calm, and it's been great in so many ways. In lots of ways I can't quite express.
Well,
but
it's been a real pleasure having you there, and I felt like when lockdown happened, when we were sort of, plunged into this, I thought a Monday morning session would really work for people who can make the time for it, or even if they're kind of working from home, to sort of find that hour to themselves, because we start the week, it's another week.
Yeah.
Here we are again. So it's like, what can we do to kind of bring about focus, positivity, a sense of transformation that can sort of help you grow through the week, and, just maybe spark some ideas, or just maybe make you realize that rest is what you need, just kind of, that goes back to what you were saying at the start, noticing. It just gives you an opportunity to notice. And I think a lot of people could miss that opportunity if they don't stand still for a little while.
Yeah,
or move
it's like tuning in, isn't it? It's like tuning into that quiet voice and what your heart's saying. And it's and Monday morning is perfect for that.
Oh, thank you, Kirstie. Just going to check in and see if anyone's commented or anything. No? Okay. So after this conversation, obviously people will be able to watch it again on playback. So you're welcome to, at that point, leave any comments, or you can drop me an email, yoga@helenroscoe.com, if you have any questions. We're going to have the links of Kirstie's portfolio, some of the films that she showed. Can put her Instagram handle on there as well, on the comment thread. So I'll do that afterwards. And yeah, otherwise, I've just got a really nice quote that I've taken from this. Kirstie, you said, creativity is a tool for bringing communities together. And I think that's a really beautiful place to end this conversation. So yeah, thanks for joining me. And yeah, I'll see you on Monday next week.
Yeah.
If not before.
Certainly.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kirstie. Okay. So thanks to Kirstie for coming. Hope you enjoyed the conversation around creativity. I hope you enjoyed Kirstie's films. So beautiful in terms of her approach, and very sensitive with the subjects that she's working with, the creative practitioners. You can really get that feel of collaboration. A wonderful storyteller. So yeah, like I said earlier, if you do have any comments or questions, just drop me an email, yoga@helenroscoe.com, and we'll leave links in the comment thread. Next week, I'm going to be doing a YouTube live yoga practice on Monday evening at 8 p.m. So check in for that, and I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, though, please do like or comment, subscribe to my channel if you get a moment. That would be fantastic. And yeah, we'll look forward to hearing from you soon. Okay, bye.